So this conversation is discussing how harm, exploitation, and avoidance continue to operate within creative and cultural practice. So it's pretty big. The conversation is centered on readiness, considering what responsibilities come with our roles and influence and what it means to refuse neutrality. So the first question, is how does it feel in your body and heart to refuse neutrality?
So you want to define what neutrality is? I'll give an example of what I think you mean. I was at a gathering recently where someone indicated that it was safer for them to say nothing when they see wrong being done because they didn't feel safe to speak up. And for me, that would do me harm if I kept it stuffed down. So for me, I must respond to something like that. I would never stand for an injustice or racism or someone who's struggling who might not be able to know how to ask. So I think for me, never sitting back, always stepping forward to ensure that we're walking forward in a good way, to make sure that good intentions are being shared, to cultivate safe spaces, to make sure that words are clarified so we all understand what we're saying, and that I just think safety and comfort makes for good feelings inside so that you can go home knowing you're not carrying any of the ill that you might have been exposed to.
Thank you. And can the other two, could we get a little introduction too before you answer the question? We got a chance to hear from Auntie Mary, but the other two, I'd like everyone to know who you are too.
Sure. I might ask you to repeat the question after this, though.
Yes.
My name is Morningstar or Star. I've been in Vancouver, colonially known as Vancouver, for about 22 years. I'm originally from a farm in northern Ontario. My parents kind of ran away from the world a little bit, and my dad was a draft dodger from Vietnam, and my mom was a civil rights activist and desegregation activist, and they moved to Northern Ontario and had me and lived at the end of their own road and had no electricity and all these things. So I grew up sort of as a free child, I guess, and away from larger society. So why do I tell that story? I think it's really important to understand that about my foundation, to understand who I am today. I work in a very colonial system, doing granting at a philanthropic organization, and it's in that work that I live in a constant state of contradiction. So I also am the president of my local union and part of CUPE, which is the Canadian Union of Public Employees. I'm on the QPBC Board of Directors, and in that work, I, again, live on this sort of knife's edge of contradiction. So very much in the system and also continuously pushing against it in whatever way I find possible. So. Do you want to do introductions first or wait until we get to each?
I think you answered the question.
Oh, okay. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing, though, about that question, that neutrality is not neutral. Neutrality is a very strong choice. It can seem like it's like I'm just staying out of trouble, but by staying out of trouble, you are making a choice. So.
Hi, Ichka.
Hi, everyone. My name is SF Ho. I'm an artist, writer, and I also organize a lot of art events. I think that art has the power to transform society through hearts and minds and spirit, and I really like being an artist. My family came to Turtle Island from Hong Kong around the 1970s. I've been living mostly in East Vancouver for the past 15 years. I don't really have any institutional affiliation. I haven't for a long time. I have been in the art world for a long time, and I've done the hustle for a long time, freelancing or working for different institutions and stuff. Yeah, around neutrality, I would echo what you said. There's no such thing as a neutral space. Yeah, like any space that you're creating, any gathering, it's made of the people it's made by people, and those people, their experiences, their desires inform the space, right? And if you are making a space and there's always going to be someone excluded from who's not going to feel at home in that space, or who just, it doesn't click for them, and sometimes that's okay too. Sometimes you don't want everyone to be in that space. So I think it's a good thing to notice when you're in that neutrality that you're assuming, in that neutrality that you're assuming to kind of look at the conditions that form it and ask what might not be there for someone to enter the room, I guess, because there's always going to be something, and it's a good practice to consider.
Hi, Ichka. Thank you. So the next question is about denial and inaction. And the question is, what do you see? I'm going to break the question down. It's a little bit. What do you see as a denial that people are consistently meeting that leads to ineffective leadership? What's the big denials that are leading to ineffective leadership? We'll start with that. Yeah. Or in other words, I'll say, what do you think leaders are bypassing or minimizing or avoiding?
Well, I watch a lot of CNN, so I'm going to say I see a lot of denial happening down south and a lot of inappropriateness. But I think in our own circles, to your point about staying quiet or trying to be neutral, I think those questions are kind of linked. And I think denial is temporary. Even if you are really good at lying to yourself, denial is temporary. Sometimes a little denial can get you through a tough spot, but in all honesty, it's not good for you. It's not healthy, and it's good to be more to deal with the facts and to be solution-oriented and think, what path do I need to be on to ensure that I'm safe and I'm free and I'm able to walk forward in a good way. I dealt with denial. I forget what the other thing you said was. Denial and something.
What are they avoiding?
Oh, I think we are currently living in a fear-based society where there are so many megaphones out there who feel if they're loud and express negative towards anyone they view as different or having something they feel they should have, not everyone is able to step up and say this is wrong or that's not right, or try to argue with someone who can't be argued with. And so I think and fear is not good for us. So we need to think, how can we, what is the one thing we can do that we know we're at least doing something good in the face of so much harm being done? And I think that's what we have to do. We all have to meet each other where we're at and think, what do we have the capacity to undertake that'll let us know that we did take a small step today. We did something for ourselves, or we talked to a friend, or we found a phrase or a word or something that will help us to deal with the fear mongers and the harm that's being done all around us.
I agree that the fear thing that we're living with right now is really, it's in our bodies, it's in the air, we're breathing it in every moment. So, and with fear comes the need to choose an enemy to look to as the person who did wrong, or the group of people who did wrong, and they're the reason we can't have nice things and can't live where we want to live, and all of these types of things. And I think that there are a couple of kinds of denial. I think one is that we all have the same opportunity, because I don't think that that's true. But the other one, in order to say that we all have the same opportunity, this sort of, I know this, people talk about the myth of meritocracy, and there's just a sense that, I mean, I think inherently we are all equal, but we are not living in the world as equals. We don't encompass the same amount of space. We're not able to have our voices heard at the same volume and in the same spaces. So I think acknowledging that, I struggle a lot with, being in a meeting at work or something, and I have a director who will not name what we're actually dealing with. We just had a huge layoff, and there's this whole scarcity mentality, and people are scrabbling and fighting each other for jobs, and at no point is it named that it's greed that is making that possible, right? And that it isn't about, funding shortfalls or anything else. It's about a CEO who wants to line his own pockets rather than care about the people in his organization. So, not naming those things, we allow them to be perpetuated. So I have in my job the ability to sort of sit there and not talk about it as much, but then I put on my union hat and I get to talk about it a lot. So that's kind of the way that I survive through that. But I think just a lack of honesty in our experiences and what our needs are. I think it's really damaging not to tell the truth about what's happening around us and how we don't hold each other up in the same way all the time.
Yeah, that last thing you said about avoidance really landed with me. So many spaces where people will just avoid naming something, and just being able to, anyway, that one definitely. I don't know, I guess you were talking about leadership, and there's a way of thinking about leadership where you're the boss and you get to you have kind of authority to name whatever happens, and it feels really static, in a way, things are not going to change. It's just the way that things are. But I often think about leadership as a means to be very good at listening to everything that's happening around you and being able to act upon to make decisions in order to enable all of these voices that you're accountable to just to be able to make that, to facilitate that happening, So, I guess thinking, about that avoidance that kind of like covering your ears, not wanting to like hear what's in the room or name what's happening, versus like the kind where you're just trying to like hold as much as you can, I guess, or take care of people within that, you know? So it's kind of just what came to mind for me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, go add as much as you want.
I just want to, building on what you guys have said, I think too, in these times where people are a little bit afraid, or not everyone is a warrior, is what I was thinking in my head. We have to think about who we are as humans. What is our role? If I think about our longhouse, there are warriors, there are firekeepers, there are knowledge holders, there are matriarchs, there are cooks, there are floor managers, there are people who keep us all moving forward in a good way. So you don't have to be the frontline person if that's going to be hard on you. We don't want you to do harm to yourself by stepping forward when things are wrong. But there are others who you can walk with. I think we need to find our safe spaces and those that we can support, so that we can find ways to lift each other up, to hold each other up, to check in with someone, to find out that are we on the right path? Did you hear what I heard? What should we do? Like, you need a little bit of that. And we are coming out of that time still from the pandemic where everyone was isolating, and getting re-socialized is almost a whole human experiment for all of us. But that's what has given space to these megaphones. So I think we do have to reach out and connect, just to make sure that we're checking in with one another and letting each other know it's not you, it's not us, that is wrong, and we'll do what we can.
Thank you. So going off that, if people like in leadership were to confront what they're denying or stop avoiding what they're avoiding, what do you think would become possible? And what would that look like? What would that do?
Do you want to talk first? I can. I was born with an answer for everything.
Go for it.
It's okay. Just keep that one.
What would it look like if those who were lying to us, name-calling us, whatever, were to have a sudden epiphany?
Yes.
So I think that's not really a reality. So I think we have to see them and let them know we see them, that this is wrong, and we have to name it. And because we're in this time of fear and we're all a bit worn down because everybody's working 24/7 these days. I think we need to make sure that we're always naming it, that we're always calling it out, because bad people know they're bad people. Even if they try to believe their own lies, they know they're here for a good time, not a long time. They know it's a short-term run. So we just have to make sure that we're saying, this is not okay, this is wrong. But we have to do more than that, because when I don't want to keep talking about what's happening down south, but I just think there are so many people pointing and saying that's wrong, but it doesn't matter. It feels like it doesn't matter. So that's where we have to come back to, what is that one thing I can do? I can write something, I can paint something, I can spray paint something, I can do one thing that I know will mark the moment that there's turning points coming. And then we have to also acknowledge those turning points, those small steps forward, and know that even as individuals, or even with our team, our support team, we are moving forward in a good way, and those people are going to come to the end of their cycle at some point, and other things are going to take their place. But there's going to be a lot of undoing, and we have to be up for the work that it takes to correct any wrongs and any harm that's being done. So it's a long road, and so I would say for everyone, pace yourself, be kind to yourself, walk gently, and just let yourself know the shape of the day, the shape of the hour, the shape of this minute. What am I doing? And announce it to yourself so that you know you're moving forward.
So your question was, what if we weren't, like, if leaders were honest about what was going on, what would it change? I agree with you. I don't think the honesty is forthcoming.
Well, I have to try. I have to have some sort
No, for sure. I think it's a power grab, and it's a struggle for dominance, and it's about scarcity and perceived scarcity and all these really complex things that get into, they don't speak to our logical selves. They speak to something that's much, much more reactive than that, and that's one of the problems. I definitely don't see that coming, but I do think, like, I know there's a lot of, if we look down south again, but also around the world, there are a lot of people telling us that our actions or our individual actions are unimportant and will do nothing, but I don't believe that, even for 1 second. Even if what you do is just give someone else the knowledge that not everyone has fallen into line, right? That not everyone else is in agreement. Like these huge protests that we're seeing, these no kings, they're important. The resistance to be seen visually by other people is fundamental. And what it does is it initiates something in people to say, okay, I'm getting closer to my moment of action. And moment of action can be so many different things, right? Like if we look at an event like today, the food is key, right? That's part of how we do the thing. So activists are not necessarily the ones on the microphone. They could be the one in the kitchen making sure that the food is out. And sometimes the leaders are the ones pushing other people to speak, right? Maybe that's what leadership looks like. So I think really key is, I don't think we're going to have honesty from the powers that be, but I think maybe being honest with ourselves, finding ourselves in community in this way, and being honest with each other, naming the things that we feel that are not necessarily like the rage sometimes. The rage is real. The frustration, the feeling that there's nothing we can do. Well, I have those days, and then I wake up the next day and I have a different way of looking at the world, because you need to fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up. But just doing that work and keeping, like you were saying, holding people to account and saying we don't agree and letting people know when they're not in good relationship with the world around them.
What was the question again?
It's okay. It's okay. It's a lot.
Leaders? Something
So
about leaders.
if those leaders that are denying or avoiding started to tell the truth or stop avoiding, stop denying, like what would that look like? I have my own answer that I'm going to say.
I mean, I think the leaders that we're thinking of aren't lying or anything. They're just doing what they're doing, and but I don't know. I'm just kind of like, what is a leader anyway?
Yeah.
Right? I'm very distrustful of anyone who positions themselves as in a position of leadership, as a leader, like of what? I don't know. I think it's kind of odd. But leadership. Yeah, like, I mean, I guess within an organization or, like, I don't really think about things that way. Like, I feel like it's like, that's like a very professionalized, like, realm of, like, how one would interact with people. And I just need a minute to think. I'm actually not great at talking, so this will be.
Well, I can hear the words coming from your mouth.
Yeah, I'm trying.
The sounds, they're there. I'll add what I was thinking, reflecting about this. Because there has been a lot of discussion about the United States of America, it sounds like, and Donald Trump and no kings. You know, in our own city, we have the mayor of Vancouver. What's his name? Ken Sim? Sorry. And what I think I'm realizing is that, like, yes, we have to accept that they could be just telling the truth, and that's their truth, which is we don't agree with it. And I think if we were to hear more and more about maybe their actual, their own sense of truth, I think the world would be more chaotic, which is kind of scary. And I think that's what we're experiencing, is that accepting that, like, there's some individuals that have become very powerful somehow, and we can't change them, but we can change ourselves, and we can change and collectively come together and just make the most of it, which is kind of sad in its own way. But I think the more people come forward and start revealing who they are this other, what's this MLA? Dallas Brody? Dallas Brody. We're going to talk to Niall. We're going to go there. Like, that's, in her mind, as confusing as it is maybe to so many of us, that is her truth, I think. And that's what's scary. And I avoid talking about that woman like the plague. But I thought, well, if that's what I'm doing and I'm avoiding, then I should speak too. And I realized that the more people come forward and tell their truth, it's going to get chaotic. But I think we need a little bit of this truth, regardless if we agree with it or not, to progress as a group. Because then we can say, no, it gives us the opportunity to say no, not that. So we need more of it. Someone like the liberal politics of, like, Justin Trudeau, who's like, kind of, no one really, it's wishy-washy, no one really knows what it is. Like, who knows what the truth is to that man? Like, it's gone so, like, that to me is almost more difficult to confront, because that's the avoidance. Yeah.
So with that MLA, I don't believe that's her truth. I think that's her shtick. Oh. I think she just wants a platform. She just wants her name. She just wants recognition, because the average voter who may not do their homework goes, oh yeah, I've heard that name, tick. And for the former PM, came to us out of acting school. So I think that's part of that. They might have been good at their job, but because they come from, this is how I look when I'm the PM, it's hard to believe or find that line with the truth. And in these times when I think about a young woman in my life who's just, on the street screaming her head off about, murder to missing Indigenous women, or harm to the land and waters, or bad police, or bad politics, and she's wearing herself out, trying to draw attention to all of the injustices, and I didn't name half of what she's out there standing up for. And I just want to say again, like, as a mother, as a grandmother, as an auntie, as a sister, let's pick one thing that we can do, because there is a lot of wrong and a lot of harm, and And I want people to be healthy enough to fight a good fight and take a few steps forward and be safe and feel like not so overwhelmed by all the wrong.
Yeah, I would second that too. I mean, yeah, we're living in very terrifying times, but like in terms of who is in power right now or whatever, like the system that underlies that has not changed, and it's like fed by like the history of how we arrived here also has not changed. The work that we need to do to change this system is also not different. So the way that I get through the day is just to wake up every day and just like, I'm just doing the same thing I was doing many years ago. Like it's still the same kind of approach, I think. You just, and I agree, it's like sometimes you just gotta pick one small thing that you think is important and that you think you can do something about, and just like take your time with that and get up every day. You're not gonna, I mean, it feels good to scream and it's necessary sometimes, but you can't, it would be so nice if you could flip a switch and just change everything, but your arms can only go so far, and that's not bad. And like you can do that with people, and then that is enough, and you don't need to get stressed about anything else, you know? Just keep doing that small thing every day.
Thank you. That's very optimistic.
That's how I get out of bed every day.
Yeah, you gotta get out of bed. And I scream too.
I just wanted to add one little thing about that woman that we were speaking about, the politician. I definitely understand not wanting to engage with it, but Yuri Fulmer, who's running for the Conservative Party of British Columbia, has aligned himself with Dallas Brody, and they are on a platform together now. So be aware that that is forthcoming, and that's going to be that big push to that negative, this denialism, this eradicate the downtown east side, like big policing. So just be aware that that is forthcoming. And I think they announced this last week.
Oh, thank you so much for letting us all know.
Yeah. I don't know if people know who Yuri Fulmer is, but if you look him up, he's got some pretty scary stuff that he's saying as well. So
most of those politicians that are running for the Conservative Party leadership of British Columbia do have, I would describe as a very fear-based understanding of Indigenous people and our relationship to the land and our rights. It's all based in fear. And I don't really know if there's any of them that haven't come out and expressed their disdain for the announcement recently that Musqueam was given a title over this area. It's all based in fear, so I'm kind of, let's just watch out for all of them.
for real.
But the next question, which I really appreciate all of you have sort of discussed, connecting to other people, prioritizing like our relationship to each other at some point during the discussion so far. So we have this term from Sean Wilson called relational accountability. I hope everyone has heard it before. It comes from the academic idea of it comes from an academic from the prairies. I think he's Cree, Sean Wilson. And it's basically like we're accountable to all the different connections we have in the world. And I actually view this on a very deep level of beyond humans, you know, with water, everything. And I want to know how the three of you, if you know that concept, how you practice that. Whenever you're ready.
I'm going first?
There's no order. Whoever feels it in their heart.
Does anyone feel something in their heart right now?
Always feeling the feels.
I'm not going to object to you going first.
Just take the mic.
All right. Love you guys. Respect. Relational accountability, I think, is what we are talking about, is about how we manage our respect for one another as well as to the land and waters, how we see and hold up one another and make sure that people don't feel alone or less than or racialized or cut off, that people feel they matter. And I think when we see all the harshness around us or find things, we're incredulous at headlines or things that people will openly say in public, I think that we know that we're here to say, do you need help? Because I'm going to watch my words. I'm going to be careful what I say. As a communicator, I know that what I say and what people feed back to me, what they hear, I'm always surprised by that. I'm always surprised by what I may have been seen to say. So I think knowing that, I think that we must walk forward with mindfulness and thoughtfulness and come from a good place and give people space to respond rather than blast every thought we may have, which is a hard lesson for me. I have a lot of thoughts. So I think relational accountability means, it's not just me, it's we. We're in this together, and I think knowing that makes us accountable to one another, and we don't have to feel like we're having to take everything on by ourselves, but we're also opening our ears to what others have to say in our circles, and opening our hearts, opening our minds, opening our ability to learn from one another. I think that's really, we're all on this journey of learning together anyway as we move forward. So we have sayings in our community, tataltalst, we are learning together, we are walking forward together. These are important words. I share them whenever I can because I feel like it's that we, that us, that togetherness that helps us move forward.
Do you want to go next? I guess I've heard the term before, but I guess I don't know if I'm interpreting it correctly, is understanding that we're interconnected, all of us, everything, and that everything that we do has impact. Sometimes I think, for me, it means sometimes you don't know what your impact is, right? You might not have bad intentions, but it doesn't land the way you want it to, and maybe having the humility to be able to say, I didn't see that I was doing that, but now that you've shown it to me, I'm willing to think about doing things a different way. And I think one of the things that we all suffer from a little bit is that, our being separate from, like if you eat meat, it comes from a store in a little package wrapped in cellophane that came from a huge factory where the animals were grown in captivity to be slaughtered. The whole purpose of their life was to be slaughtered. So we are so separate in so many ways from all of the things that actually keep us alive. We put gas in our cars and drive them. Like all of the separation from the source, from the earth, from the water, from, the water comes out of our taps in our house. It doesn't come from a body of water. So that separation has been so damaging to us and pulls away that relational responsibility, right? And that's part of, like, when I'm always making these connections about, like, when we talk about leaders, one of the things that we've seen is this concentration of resources, supported by so few people. Scarcity doesn't exist, it's created. And so, like spending the time to think about those things, to try and find ways to reconnect, just as we go through our lives, our regular daily lives, and finding those small ways to be in community and not doing harm.
I have my own mic now. Yeah. I'm not. I have like constant brain fog, and I just like, I'd say the first thing that comes to my head, and then it leaves, and I can't finish. But anyway, yeah, agree with everything everyone's saying. I don't think that the separability is an illusion, you know? We aren't separate. We're all, like, literally, like, always connected, right? I think something I could add is just, like, tying that into the kind of work that we do. There's, like, the kind of work that you do where you, and this is fine, people got to work, and you, like, go and you do your work, and then you come home at night, you put your work on your shelf, and then it's not really a part of you. And then there's the kind of work that you do in community because you are implicated in each other's lives, and if something happens to the people that you're connected with, that is a part of you, and you need to take care of yourself, the us of what we are, right? I haven't had a real job in like 15 years, so I only know how to work in one of those ways. So, like, I don't know if that's a great work-life balance thing, but that's just like what I've come, that's just where I'm at, you know? So, you know, people need their work boundaries and stuff, but I guess I don't. I just feel like I'm tied into and implicated in a lot of the stuff I put my time into. It's not really my job or anything, you know? I'm not a leader. I'm just like often in these conversations, and I feel like I need to be there. I'm just like kind of showing up, and by showing up, like, I get to be around some very cool stuff, and I learn a lot from it, you know? So, like, that is kind of what you're talking about, I think. Yeah? I have a banana bread story, but I think it's too weird.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear the banana.
It's probably long, but like, are we trying to like stretch out the time here? I could probably just.
If anyone has to go, they can go whenever they want.
Everyone check your parking. Check your parking.
I don't know.
Check your parking.
Check your parking, and now we're listening to banana bread.
Banana bread. I don't. Oh yeah, you don't get tickets out there, so we got time for banana. I don't know. I just like, I think in the questions you sent us, it was like, show us a example of relational accountability or whatever, right? And I can't remember anything that's happened to me. So the last thing I did was go cook for a residency that happened on Toronto Island on the weekend. I just showed up and like I just like cooked for all the kids or whatever, right? And what's the point of the banana bread story? So I'll just tell the story of what I did this weekend. I don't know if it has anything to do with anything. I went and I cooked I showed up. My friend was like, I really need you to come and cook because I don't like, no one, it would just be good if you could come help. And then there was all this food that was going bad. There was a lot of bananas. I was in relation with the bananas. And like, they were like, no one's eating these bananas. Can you make banana bread? I was like, okay, I can make the banana bread. And they had, you know, you got to get your gluten-free banana bread and you got your regular banana bread. And so I made both kinds, and people were really stoked about it. But then someone was like, oh, I'm dairy-free. I really wanted this banana bread. And like, why didn't anyone check the like checklist? Why did you make us like fill out these forms to tell if you didn't know that if you can't even check that I'm dairy-free and make me a dairy-free banana bread, I'm kind of bummed out. And I was like, okay, that sucks. And so I felt sad about that because like they really wanted to eat it. And then the next day I got up and I made a dairy-free banana bread because we found more bananas. And then, I don't know, you just you just go with it, is what I'm saying, right? There's nothing, there's no harm, no foul. You just keep, you're in relation with the bananas and the people and their needs, and, you just need to, and, sometimes, you're doing art stuff and it's very fancy and you get to do fun stuff. But sometimes the more interesting thing is to, be a fly on the wall and be the banana bread guy and, get to, partake in listening to, what happens around you. And that's more fun than doing something super, extroverted, That's the banana bread stuff.
You keep it.
Tangible examples. I don't know.
I love that because it made me think of I'm a grandma, and I'm always thinking, as a person who was born decades ago, I'm not going to say the year, but in the last century. So, but what I think about now is about transition and about maybe I'm a leader on some things, not a great cook, can't craft or bead, but born with the gift of the gab or whatever, can make up words to any song, stuff like that. But I mean, there's all kinds of leaders, the expertise. I see teachers in the room and other grandmothers, and I see artists and people who are taking on roles and stretching themselves to learn. But I think when we think about relational accountability, just like the bad people, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So how can we make the best of this time? And how can we share our teachings? And how can we help to nurture future leaders, or for them to come into themselves and blossom and find their space, figure out who they are, and move forward where they need to belong and make up their own song lyrics or say their piece or whatever. I think we need to be thinking not just about relationality to accountability to a specific issue, but also on the big picture. Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? What is our plan? We made a plan, but it didn't work out, so we have to change it. But we just keep moving forward. But I think as long as we don't go alone and bring someone coming after us and make sure that we're not the end of the line when we go, that's really important to think about as we see all the beautiful youth in the room and all of the good words and the things that they're picking up and carrying.
Hi, Ichka. I was just thinking, because I didn't mention that I think this concept that Sean Wilson has brought to us today is ubiquitous probably across the world. I want to believe that we're just all connected, or we're all one. And it's probably been going on since the dawn of time, because it would have had to for us to exist as a species up to this point. And it reminds me of what my uncle would say, this phrase, we are one, or one heart, one mind. He would just say not samat. A funny story, I'll be relationally accountable to more than one. He would say not samat, but when I checked with his brother-in-law, Larry Grant, he said, oh, he doesn't give a shit. It's not samat tishkwalawinst. We are one heart, one mind. It's not just not samat, it's not samat tishkwalawinst. And Auntie Mary is going to correct me, I'm sure.
Well, I'm just going to say family. Family have things to say about one another, but what I always notice about language, this is really important, I always find, because this comes about sharing teachings. I remember being in my first language class, and we were about to learn international phonetic characters, how to write a sound that makes the sound. Like you can't work that out in English phonics. But for me, it was like a first step into the language. But I was surrounded by others of all ages who had some language that they'd learned. And one person would say a phrase that they learned from their grandmother, and someone else would say, well, that's wrong. And I would be like, oh, how can you say that's wrong? It's so close to what we would say. But what they should have said was, oh, was your grandmother from the island? Or was she from the interior? Because that sounds more like an interior Salish, like some languages have an L or some don't. So it's about the way that we say. Like those two, they squabble a little bit, but one had island teachings and one had local downriver dialect. So that was really at the root of all of it. And one might have said whatever, and the other one might have said that's wrong. But either way, they both carry really strong teachings to share. But that was just their banter.
And I think what I appreciate about the banter is that it takes a lot of respect for two people to have that banter. So although it might sound harsh for an outsider, I think we all know that they highly respected each other at the end of the day. And that's why they were able to have the banter. So I want to segue back to so it's not samat geschwollenst, close enough, I hope. And we are one heart and one mind. And I think that would be the Musqueam version of this concept of relational accountability, which is we are one heart and one mind. All of us, all over the world, right? So the banana bread, though. So what I took from that, which is where we're going to go into the next section, was you were ready. You were ready. You were ready. You had readiness. Mm-hmm. You were there. I don't know how you did it, to be honest. That would just overwhelm me to be like, oh, dairy-free banana bread. Does that exist? Like, I would just panic. Like, just call someone and be like, I need you to make. I'd be on the phone.
Can you Uber a banana bread?
And I do appreciate those bananas. I felt that in my heart that they wanted to be eaten. I think you honored them. Thank you. Yeah. I'll say it for the bananas because they're gone now. Bless them. But you were ready. You were ready. Uh-huh. And so that because readiness is also part of like what we're getting into. Is that I think to do this relational accountability or to be one heart, one mind is we have to be ready. And that takes a lot. And so the question I have for you is, because Vines, I want to also say we're all about minimizing bureaucracy. So in terms of readiness, what are ways that you reduce bureaucracy to ensure that people you work with are treated fairly and with respect? Like, how do you get ready for that to like make things flow nicely?
Sounds right up your Union Alley there.
Oh. I think usually processes derail things sometimes, right? They take the humanity out of things. I would say you have a conversation. You have a conversation. Instead of citing some rule or throwing a book at someone, right? You have a conversation. Because at the end, you don't know what someone's reason is for not being able to be fully present or any number of things. You don't know what an individual is going through. And I see, if you look at road rage, you can say people are going through things, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be so angry in traffic. So you don't know. So having a conversation, just taking the time to have a conversation. And asking, what do you need? How does this work for you? Is there another way we can do this? What are your ideas around this? I think that's really key, is just having a conversation. Being open to that and not coming with like some authority to people. I think people don't respect you because of your title. I think people respect you because of your humanity or fear. And I would rather be, if someone has respect for me, it's based on the fact that we are in relationship, rather than they think that I have some authority over them. I don't, And I keep thinking about what you were saying about not having had a regular job. And that sounds so wonderful. I love that idea. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about the meat coming in packages. So is a 9 to 5. It's packaged gathering of food. It's packaged, all of these things. It's all artificial, right? It's all artificial. It's all created as some means of production. And so, yeah, that's my goal, definitely. So far, I haven't been able to get a job as a full-time singer, but if I could, I would, for sure.
Yeah, there's like a kind of precarity to not having a job. It's a bit stressful, but there's also an openness to it. The question is around bureaucracy. There's a way in which you're able to flow and adapt that you might not be able to otherwise. I don't know. Bureaucracy exists. I think we live in a world where we need money for some reason, and the framework that holds money and how money is how we value things rather than other ways is held within a system of bureaucracy. And unfortunately, we are beholden to that to a certain extent. So the question becomes, as we try and overturn that system, obviously, whether you mitigate that by making sure that other people don't have to do that bureaucracy, but then you kind of hold this paternalism in that, or do you try and help people figure it out so that they can take it on themselves, So I think it's a balance between those two things. But when I'm thinking about how stuff actually happens in terms of getting stuff done, bureaucracy is good for getting money, but besides that, it's not good for making other things happen. I'm thinking about even how we ended up doing that Driving in Palestine show here last year through Vines Festival. The way that came about was just because the reason why I think artists are really good at hanging out, and I think hanging out is the way that things kind of happen. So there's things that need to get done, but the reason that they can get done is because I like going to the garden and helping out where Heather is working at the garden, and then because we have that kind of dynamic, then I can just be like, Heather, what if we did this thing here, and then it goes a lot easier. Or I'm thinking about in terms of one thing that I remember a lot was during the blockades for Wet'suwet'en, how there ended up being one of the organizers who ended up sleeping at my house for a couple nights, and I was able to help her out with stuff or whatever. But the reason she felt comfortable staying with me was not because we'd gone to the same meetings and written some really cool manifestos or something. It was because we went to the same, I knew her poetry and I thought it was beautiful, and we'd connected to and we'd been in complicated community together. We actually knew each other. It's not like we knew each other really well, but I think the art of hanging out engenders a lot more informally, engenders a lot more than whatever else people do.
I think that's your mic.
I don't want it.
Give it to Axe.
Are you going to answer the question, Auntie?
Yeah.
You
What
have
have
the
we
gag.
done to reduce bureaucracy?
To ensure that people you work with are treated fairly and with respect.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answers.
Well, I think it really comes down to getting to know the people around you, because, as we mentioned, we all have our own way of connecting, of hearing, of listening, of learning, we have our own speed that we can take information in, and I think taking the time to understand what is your love language and how can we connect in that way. When we understand how we learn or how best to communicate with one another, that's the first step. And I think sometimes it takes a few conversations to learn that. There's no magic love language pill that you can take to immediately understand one another, but it means giving the time, allowing that time. And I realize, like in workplaces, sometimes things have to happen, but let someone carry that ball while the rest of us get to know our colleagues and help them to, maybe they'll never carry the ball. Maybe they need to keep the ball filled with air, or maybe they need to help keep score, or maybe they need to be on the receiving end, or whatever. I think it's just finding that path and taking the time to build those relationships, because once we get to know one another, it all becomes a little easier, as you mentioned, right? Having that conversation space or having that time. And we don't always have the luxury of time, and so many of us might have arrived here separated from our natural line of support, and we don't really have those inroads. So I think collectively, that's where it does become important to, we don't want all of our employees or coworkers to feel like we're in a churn and burn environment where, we hired you to do this one thing, and if you're not up for it, just get out of our way, let us get this done. We don't want that because then we'll never get there. We want to make sure that we allow people to find their way and help. Once we understand their language, then help to guide the process, nurture that for future transition.
Well, I appreciate that. So I think what I'm hearing a lot of is conversation, listening, remaining open. I think my own perspective about the whole thing is to be adaptable, flexible. And my own experience with this, I think, well, this is, where'd Heather go? Heather. Yeah. Oh, don't worry about it. I think for me, because this was a lot of Heather's work, because Vines has been built the past 10 years with Heather as the director. And so what I get a lot of this question is, with the bureaucracy, a lot of it is about payment, making sure people get paid on time, that you have different approaches to making payment. So when I started working in arts organizations, I don't know, not too long ago, no one was able to make cash payments. And I remember, because we were working with a lot of people in the downtown east side with Rain City Housing, a lot of the facilitation I did was with art workshops for people there. And these are people that don't have bank accounts. Maybe they don't have, they're on disability. They can only earn a certain amount a month. And so we kind of had, I remember being like, well, there has to be a way to pay people in cash. This is absurd. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going to all these arts organizations and kind of saying all you got to do is get a sheet of piece of paper, you write their name on it, and you wrote that they got money. That's it. And sometimes it was a handwritten piece of paper that I wrote on the spot. And then they just sign it, and then you give them cash. It was so hard for people to comprehend that. They were like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, if that's all we need, can't you just write it on a piece of paper and then take a picture of it? And so we did that for weeks and years. I did that. I hope it's still happening. But Yeah, today. Oh, you did it today. Yeah, but like it like boggled people's minds at first. The people I was working with, I'm like, how? Like, you don't need an invoice like that says everything all the time, and you're only giving them like $150. So like, what's the, So that was one thing, and then also sometimes I would just make you just make the invoice for them. Just like, oh, we'll take care of that. Don't worry. If they seem flustered or overwhelmed or if it's been like 6 weeks, and you just say, well, why didn't anyone make that invoice for them? It takes not that long. So that's kind of my own like more little frustrations that I've seen. Is people don't know how to be adaptable or flexible. They just get told we need an invoice, and then they expect the invoice, and then when they don't get it, they start like, why didn't we get that invoice? And I'm like, well, did you talk to them? Like what? So, yeah. I think that's all the questions that we have. I really appreciate all your thoughtfulness and insightful answers. And I want to know now if there's any questions from the people here. This is a wonderful opportunity. We're going to do about 20 minutes of questions. I really want to encourage, if that's okay, everyone to come forward with your questions. You can come grab my mic. So maybe you could just come around here if you have a question to ask.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
thing about invoicing for the cash and just sign here, that's leadership. And I hope it spreads.
I hope so too, because it was exhausting to deal with at the time. Thank you. This can be a talking stick too. We could just pass it around. The cord, yeah, with the cord, yeah. There's no questions. There we go. See?
I can just speak from here.
I think we can all hear you. Can everyone hear this person?
Does it matter for the...
Can the camera recording hear?
Oh, I can.
No. Okay, no, for the camera.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for your great insights and perspectives. Learning a lot today. I have a question around maybe having difficult conversations around values or situations that have, made you feel that like pit in your stomach. Maybe it's a close friend. Maybe it's a community member. Maybe it's one of those conversations that starts to shift and change those perspectives from our peers. How do you start those conversations? When do you have them? And how do you balance like recognizing they're also human and they're learning, but also being able to share your perspective and maybe educate them as well?
I've had a lot of difficult conversations. I've also fired a lot of people, but not
No
without
denial.
having a number of conversations first. No, I'm just making a joke. But I think the important part is if it's behavioral or if it's a communication issue or if there's a learning issue, undiagnosed perhaps, or we need to figure out what is at the root of the problem before we can address like the problem. So I think a check-in right away is always the best time to do it, to as close to the moment that a matter occurred that you become aware of it. It's a good time to have a check-in, and always to be aware that if I'm the boss and I'm checking in with someone who is reporting to me, that they're going to come in already stressed. Or if I want to have a quiet conversation with a coworker who I think I could offer them some advice, and they want to know why we have to have it in private, they're going to be stressed. But then this goes back to really understanding the person that you're talking with, and finding out, is this behavioral, and then is it correctable, for which there has to be a willingness for there to be a correction, or maybe they're not aware that this is how the behavior is coming across, because they haven't understood their coworkers, let's say. But if it's a diagnosed or undiagnosed issues, then we all need some coping skills, taking into consideration privacy matters and so on. But there are ways that we can help to support one another if someone's feeling overwhelmed or stressed or whatever. Sometimes, though, they just need to make a change themselves. Like maybe they're in the wrong role or in the wrong place, but you never know any of that until you take the time to process it together, as long as they're open to it. And as you move forward, I think as a mother I remember reading, my son used to try and climb on the stairs when he was still crawling. And no matter how many times I went and took him away from the stairs, even I put a gate up and he was working away how to get that gate off so he could go up those stairs. And I read in Parents Magazine that you have to tell them 2,000 times before they're gonna stop wanting to crawl up those stairs. So just that perspective made me feel like, okay, I told you once. Right? So what's happening here? So it really helps to understand human nature and behavior, or human curiosity, or human openness to change. Even like a child, a baby, doesn't have any resistance to change. That's just going to take time to learn. So I think I apply that statement from Parents Magazine to almost every conversation I have, because it helps me to realize we can't just snap our fingers and make a change, and it does usually come back to understanding and communication, and then having an agreed path forward, I think. So that's usually any conversation. And that could be in any relationship, employer-employee, coworker, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. It can be in any relationship where you think, let's talk about this so we can understand what's happening here.
So I think, were you asking, you asked about how to have those difficult conversations?
Yeah, it's pretty general, but it could be like maybe values-based.
Yeah.
Something discriminating or disrespectful they did.
Yeah.
That affects community, or could be relational as well. Just how to have difficult conversations, approaching difficult topics.
I don't know how to do it well, but I know that telling people that they're wrong usually doesn't work. I think anything that gets someone's defenses up, where they start to justify why they hold the position that they do, and it becomes almost innate that they're going to defend. I think when it works for me, and it doesn't always, I'm not going to say that it does, it's usually when I can appeal to someone's sense of how they would want to be treated and what they would want to see. Because often if you can relate it to being ostracized yourself, or being targeted yourself, or something that is just part of who you are that you don't have any control over, like what if that was what was under attack? Just trying to make it relatable in some way so that someone can see that maybe their opinion doesn't have the best interest of a lot of people in mind. Maybe it's a small group of people, or people who already have a lot of power. I think I think trying to change someone's mind is a very difficult thing to do, because our reactions to having someone try and change our mind are almost like fight or flight sort of responses. But I think often when people hold these, like, I won't say Dallas Brody is in this situation, but there are people, they're seeking attention, or they're seeking some alliance with other people, or to be part of a group of something. Sometimes like being like really mainstream seems like rebellion, right? And that active rebellion is something that people are trying to join to be part of something that they think is counterculture. But it's not really, right? It's not, and it hurts other people. So I think trying to tie it back to, are we thinking about how this affects other people, or how these actions or these thoughts or these views are damaging to people, take away their humanity, take away their right to be alive, take away their right to eat, to exist in safety. Appealing to that with something that is dear to that person, but in a compassionate way and not in like a hit them over the head with it. Because I think that I sometimes see people go full at someone, and I'm like, that's not going to land. They're just going to fight you harder.
Yeah, I think approaching a conversation like that, where you speak from the heart and also don't like blame someone when you're talking to them, is helpful. But I think also, like, if you're bothering to have a conversation like that with someone in the first place, like, that's a relationship. You're actually putting a lot of work into that, and you're bothering to put time into that, and that's something that that's like, that's a form of care. That's something that you can do with love, that you do. Yeah, I think if you're having that conversation, you're doing that out of love of someone and out of wanting to be in relation to them, and like, it's something that's good to keep in mind for yourself as you're like kind of navigating how to do it. Or else why would you, like, you know?
That's wonderful. Is there any other questions? Amazing.
Hi, I'm Jules. I get very nervous talking in front of people, but I'll try my best. I think one of the questions I have is, you guys talked about working in that space of contradiction, sometimes working for nonprofits or different organizations, and something that's been really weighing on me lately is I don't know sometimes how to work in those spaces of contradiction without feeling like it's making me sick. I don't really know. Sorry, I'm getting very, very emotional past few days. I work for PHS in housing as a so-called mental health worker. Sorry, and a lot of times what I see and the way it operates, it makes me feel quite sick. And it's difficult to live with the contradiction that I have a career and I can work and live because a particular group suffers. And I have to work to live, to survive. And the same system that oppresses a certain class of people oppresses me, and it feels like it's hard to do anything because you have to work to survive without feeling like you have blood on your hands. And I think about, how do I operate within that without feeling like I'm getting like too poisoned. Like, what is the medicine? I thought perhaps you guys would have some wise words of advice or experience.
Thank you so much, Jules. That's a wonderful question.
I mean, I can answer some of this because I live with some of those same contradictions, right? And I feel that really deeply. I know in one of my meetings at work one time, they were talking about our visioning for, what do you see as the vision for, I work on a food security team, right? What do you see as the vision for how, 5 years from now? I said, well, if we do it well enough, we won't have jobs in 5 years, right? Like, if we actually are successful at what we're intending to do, we will work ourselves right out of a job. And they're like, yeah. So I think that those contradictions are inherent, and I know exactly what you're talking about. We are part of a system that does perpetuate harm in some ways. But I think probably what you do in your work is you do good where you can, and you give where you can, and you show up for people when they need you. And you are getting a paycheck to do that. But at the same time, you're also offering a service. And I know, like, it doesn't always feel like an even trade-off. I know that very deeply, but that doesn't mean that you're not doing good work. And also, like, what led you into that type of work, right? Like, what are those things that tug at you, that make you do that kind of work, that make you show up for other people, sometimes to your own detriment, I'm sure, right? Like, you're trying to give from an empty cup sometimes, right? But that's caring, that's relational work. And yeah, I mean, those contradictions are there for sure. I don't think we live in a society where we can eradicate those things overnight. Like, it's not disappearing very quickly. So, but being the person to be that frontline person in those moments when someone needs someone to keep them in this world, I think you're probably doing that, right?
So I just want to make sure I understand the role. So your role is mental wellness in a housing, like a service that provides housing. And are you in a housing authority where clients come in and they stay there and you're serving their mental wellness while they're there? Or are you serving those who are struggling while looking for housing? I'm just...
In the housing, in the SROs.
Oh, okay. All right, in the SROs. So you are meeting people at the worst time in their lives, and there is a shortage, and those seeking housing are outnumbering the number of spaces. So I know you've had good moments and successes, but it can get overwhelming. And those that come before you, sometimes it's their first day to try and look for a place, but sometimes they are used to, what can you do for me today? And then you need to think what you can do for them today, in this moment. And try not to think they can come back tomorrow. So, and you can provide care tomorrow as well. But I think you need to break it down into what can we do today in this moment? Because otherwise it's like a fire hose of responsibility. And I think back to the young woman I referred to earlier. It can be so much that we can't fix the world, but we can help that one person in this one moment. And you need to know that sometimes that's enough for today, and then tomorrow we'll do a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add to that, because you were both so gentle in holding this question, except to affirm that there's like value in what you do, and to, despite all the contradictions of it, but also maybe at some point it doesn't suit you anymore, and you need to find a different way to pour your care into it feels like you have a lot of care, and maybe at some point you'll find that this is not the way that you need to find an outlet for that, and that's okay too. But for the moment, it's okay to live in that contradiction, I think.
Thank you. We have another question back there. Oh, okay, yeah.
I actually don't have a question, but I actually just wanted to share something. As I'm listening to all of you talk, I got a big voice.
Okay.
As I'm listening to all of you talk, and I've been just remembering a lot of things, and it's awakening a lot of things in me and stuff like that. And I work in a shelter too, right? And so I work in those contradictions all the time. But something that I base my work on, that I have learned from some people, and I didn't wanted to share that, is those small acts of kindness go a long ways. And I remember a friend of mine sharing with me, and he's gone now, he's deceased, he was sharing with me that he was walking, he was living in one of the towns, I think Kamloops area and stuff like that, and he was walking home this one night and it was pouring rain, and he was going across the tracks. And he ran into this young man that was sitting on the railroad track. So he spoke to him for a little while, and he looked in his bag and he took out a pair of dry socks and gave to him. And he said, you know, he left. And he said years later he was living here in Vancouver, and he was at an AA meeting. This young man got up and spoke, and he said, years ago, I was sitting on the railroad track, and I was going to take my life. I was going to commit suicide. But this man came and gave me a dry pair of socks. And then that little act of kindness changed his mind. And it kind of, from there he worked, and he kind of turned his life around. And it's kind of what I try to base my work on. I know I can't do a whole lot. I work in contradictions all the time, and I see things that just make me boil, and I see things and stuff like that. I go home crying. I walk through downtown East Side crying all the time, right? But that's the kind of thing that I think about all the time when I'm working with the people. And it's from being on the other side of that, fearing racism all my life. If I go someplace for services and stuff like that, I know right away when somebody's judging me. I know, I can feel it. So I think that's something that I've always, and another one that I want to, this woman was telling me about how she, she got caught up into drugs and stuff like that, and she ended up working on the streets. And she said she would go way out into the dark on the other side of Abbotsford and stuff like that, and she would do her work there because she didn't want her people seeing her there. But she said there was this one police officer who would come by, and he would like take her back into town, and he'd give her enough money to grab a coffee and stuff like that. And he said this one day he came and he takes off his glove and he shakes hands with her, and he takes her back into town. That's another one that where, from that act of kindness too, she changed and she turned her life around from that. So I think those small acts of kindness really, really go a long way.
Oh, come on down for the last question.
Thank you. My name is Julian. I'll mention first quickly, because I happen to live in her riding, that there is going to be an effort to recall Dallas Brody starting later this month. We had to wait 6 months after the election, but keep an eye out for the Recall Dallas Brody campaign later this month. What I wanted to ask was, you mentioned the idea that being in community means being implicated in each other's lives. And that feels to me like a useful corollary to the maybe capitalist idea that we have to first achieve self-sufficiency in order to be worthy of showing up in community. And I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit more on what you mean, that idea of being implicated in each other's lives and what that looks like.
Thank you.
Who said that?
I have no idea.
I think this is where it comes down to words matter. I think just by being present with one another, I think means that we're in community together. That's how I heard. That's what I heard when I heard that. We are, I am sitting next to you. I am your reality in this moment. I'm holding the mic, so I've got the talking stick, so that's my reality. So I think implicated can be, it doesn't mean that you're being thrust upon the other person or that you are now accountable for your neighbor. But I take it to mean that we need to be mindful of each other because we are in each other's reality. We are, the very word community is, to me, inspires that invokes that feeling of belonging. And but you can belong on your own terms. You know, you can keep an eye out for each other, have eyes on the street, keep, you know, just say, I know every day you walk your dog, and if you're not walking your dog today, I'm going to check on you just to make sure you're okay. Not to be nosy, and you might not like it, but, you know, maybe you had a sleep in today, and now I've woken you up. But so now I'm implicating myself into your life, thrusting myself upon you. But to me, that is what I mean. We just have we're mindful of one another. We look out for each other. To me, that's community. We get to know each other a little bit, enough to know that if you want to be left alone, you will be. You can be, but I'm still gonna, you know, I'll just be aware. We have an awareness of one another as well. And those who want to contribute in some way can, but it can be just as Mabel said, through an act of kindness. It can be a word. It can be banana bread without dairy. It can just be that awareness, that sense of belonging that we can inspire. I hope that's how I took those words, but.
I think that like working in the arts or being an artist, what it means to me is to carry a certain sort of curiosity or to be like grounded in a sense of, curiosity and joy in a way. And to be able to connect with people over like joy and culture and curiosity, and to share that. And I think, I think that's a good way to be able to, I think having joy in the context that we're in this world that we're in, is a really complicated thing to try and do well, or to do honestly, and to, I think we still need to try, and I think there's a responsibility for artists to like do that with culture and just spread joy around. So there's something about implication in that, I think.
I'm kind of at a loss for words in this one. I think maybe meeting people where they are and allowing however that ends up looking to happen. Just sometimes I think even holding space for someone until they can hold it for someone else, like just showing up, being present. Like we all bring some like different gifts, whether you have the talking stick or you're making the food or you organize this, it just being present. It's powerful to be present. It's powerful to be present with other people.
Thank you. Well, I just want everyone to give another round of applause for the amazing panelists. We raise our hands to you. Thank you for sharing your medicine with everyone. I just wanted to close. Before I do that, I wanted to just share the Vines Art Society's guiding principles and talk about the art quickly. We have time for that, right, Heather? Some people might not be here tomorrow. We don't know. We never know. Like someone, I don't know what's going to happen.
Just share about the ones that are about today then. The other two are about tomorrow.
Well, I'll let you do it then.
Okay, so I'll share the ones that this conversation came from, and then we'll share the other ones tomorrow. So one of them is relational accountability, which none of these art pieces are about, but just a note of the practices and knowledge that we at Vines keep is we try to have non-extractive relationships. So that means that there's constant fluidity in them. It can be very practical things like, hey, maybe you don't want to be related to us with your photo anymore, but you were okay with it 2 years ago, and we'll just take it down. Like, it's not that complicated.
I've done that.
Yeah, it's like things like that. It could be, and it just respects traditional knowledge, because other examples are like, we go into reserve communities and we'll take photos, and it's appropriate to use those photos to represent that work, but it's not always appropriate to like then bring their photos into like policy documents. That feels extractive often, because it's like, well, they didn't do that work in relationship to policy. They did that work in relation to community. Another one is ongoing commitment. So that means like continual. Consent and transparency, responsible engagement, and truth with care, and opposing harm. And then minimal bureaucracy. We covered that pretty well. Right up there, you can see the harm reduction image, my Kai. So harm reduction is, of course, about supporting those in addiction, those using drugs, all of that. And also, it's like harm reduction just for general people. It's a concept that can like go much beyond just thinking about drugs. And I think that is what humanizes the work with drug users, is that we're all on a spectrum of being in altered states. We're all on a spectrum of, needing vices. We're all a part of that. So that's how we think about it. And so the practices and knowledge are humanizing first, access to ceremony in various ways. So some spaces are very strictly, without substance, and then some can be more open and just being like, again, not denying that reality and helping people find what they need. Reducing stigma, check-ins and ongoing care, which was a lot of today's talking, and plant teaching, so knowing plants that can help people transition their usage. I think this one goes into everything, so I'll cover it now. Respecting land-based laws, which is up there. Whose laws? And this is pretty significant to Vines, and my personal path and journey is understanding whose laws I'm following and why, as a settler. The very first Festival of Vines, it wasn't really thought of, and then it just gradually, like, I learned more. Other people came in and had other leadership positions at Vines, but we're basing all our work on the reality that, this land is unceded, and the laws that we need to follow where we are is dependent to where we are, and which communities' laws are a part of that land. That's complex, because it's just an ongoing thing for everybody, I think, but that's a part of, not being in denial, and the practices and knowledge to respect land-based laws include learning the history of the land. So I didn't really have anything to say on any of that for like the first 6 years or so, because I didn't know anything. And I learned bit by bit just by being around people. Connection to the land and food practices. So like having Alicia here. Alicia is a Musqueam and is the gardener over at that garden right there. The lead gardener there, and they work with all people from SROs. So all the gardeners there live in the neighborhood, are downtown East Side residents, and so they're making jobs as well as connecting people to traditional medicines. It's a really awesome place, and so like some of the food she processed from there that we ate today, so that's really cool. So yeah, connecting to land and food practices, collectivity, traditional practices with permission from host nations, and matriarchal knowledge and leadership, because we're on matriarchal lands. So yeah, that's a bit about a couple of the art pieces, and then we'll talk about the other two tomorrow.
Thank you, Heather. and for juggling. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude for the young people that contributed to these artworks. Sadly, I don't think any of them are here, but we have the mother of some of them here. Woo! Carry forward those applause to the children. Yes. I'm really grateful. I had a wonderful experience working with the young people. So we had Kai do this one. And these are people from the ages of 12 to 21. So it's really impressive what they were able to put together. And then we have T over here did this one. And then we had a group of 5 high schoolers that I brought together to do the harmony and the Who's Laws. That was a long day. But it was full of laughter and eye rolling. So, and I think that's all we have for today. Looking forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. And those who can't make it, I wish you all the best. And that's it.